Russian energy terror come to the critical point, we still manage, but situation is getting worse, unfortunately.
Russia has been blowing up entire power plants in Ukraine. Some of them belong to my next guest, Maxim Timchenko. He's CEO of DTEK, that's the country's largest private energy operator. Timchenko is now part of a massive effort to scrape together as many gigawatts of power as possible before the cold weather sets in Ukraine. We talked about that effort and why renewable energy is suddenly more attractive to Kyiv. Our conversation took place on the sidelines of an investment conference for Ukraine in Berlin. I began by asking Timchenko how serious the energy situation is at this moment. Mr. Timchenko, CEO of DTEK, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I want to begin by asking you about the situation and how urgent it is. We can read a lot in the papers about what is missing right now, what's been destroyed. How would you describe it to someone who doesn't really understand what it means for households and businesses?
So it's already more than 2 years past since full-scale invasion. We survived for 2 winter seasons, but in February this year I didn't expect that the worst in front of us. Since end of the March, after 6 attacks, airstrikes, Russians destroyed 90% of thermal power generation.
In this case, coal mostly?
Coal and gas-fired generation. They destroyed about 30% of hydro. And in total, if you take the whole generation mix in Ukraine and generation capacity, about 50% damage to destroy. And the last attack was 1st of June. They started attacking also renewables, solar and wind farms. So basically it's Russian energy terror. They started more than 2 years ago, come to the critical point when today, this time of the year, we already have power outages. People stay without electricity for 4, 5, 6 hours. We still manage to maintain power supply to critical infrastructure, to our defense industry and defense enterprises. But situation is getting worse, unfortunately.
We know that in 2023, Russia also targeted a lot of infrastructure around the same time of year. How is this, what we've seen now in 2024, how is it different from what we saw then?
So for 2 years, primarily they're attacking transmission lines, substations, power grid. Now they're attacking power generation.
So much bigger infrastructure.
Power stations which produce power. The primary target was equipment and lines which transmit power from power station to consumers. Now they attack directly power stations. So they destroy turbines, they destroy generators, they destroy the source of power in the country.
What does this mean for the coming months? Everyone thinks about winter. You already talked about the blackouts that are happening right now. How do you look forward? What does it mean?
So first, everybody should understand that the situation is critical. We shouldn't underestimate the seriousness of the situation. And we are fighting not only against Russia, but against time. 120 days left before winter season. And now it's time to consolidate all the efforts in the country, between energy companies and our government, and all our allied partners and institutions ready to help us. So what can be done? Number one, we have to find a way to increase cross-border capacity that Ukraine will import more electricity out of Europe. And we see that it can be increased by 30-35%.
From what's currently being imported right now.
Exactly. Today, the capacity is 1.7 gigawatt. We see that it can be increased to 2.2, 2.5. And this is decision of our European partners, primarily in SOE, Association of Transmission System Operators. I know that there is technical talks now with our colleagues, but I think decision should be taken very soon so that we can increase flow of electricity out of Europe to Ukraine. It's the quickest solution. Number two, we need to get more equipment to install at our power stations. But this equipment, we do not have time to produce new equipment. So today, we contacted more than 15 countries to get access to decommissioned coal and gas power stations so that we can dismantle and bring back this equipment and install it in Ukraine at our power station. It's number 2. And we're working very closely now, very actively. We send several teams to different countries, and we already have first supplies coming from Lithuania, Estonia, and we are very grateful Germany, and especially the company RWE, one of the leading energy companies in Germany, that they provided us access to 5 power stations. And we see that some of this equipment can be brought back to Ukraine. So that's the quickest solution to be prepared for the next winter.
I was just going to say, can you protect that equipment when it comes in?
And that's the most important question. So all these efforts we're doing now and restoring our power unit can be destroyed by one attack, and we experienced that already. So we, after first attacks in March, we managed to restore power units, reconnect to the grid, and then it's destroyed again. And we live in this cycle: destruction, restoration, destruction. So we have to get out of this cycle, and only strong air defense system can help us. We are very glad announcement of Chancellor yesterday about sending Patriot and more munition to IRIS-T. I can say that IRIS-T is very effective air defense system, and this system protects one of our power stations. We see, but we need ammunition. So all our efforts, money, time, can be wasted if we do not strengthen our air defense systems and protection of our power station.
I just want to make clear, we hear a lot about generators being donated to Ukraine. What are we talking about in terms of capacity of what a generator can do versus the material, the infrastructure that you need right now?
So as probably heard, our president yesterday said that we lost 9 gigawatt of capacity with peak consumption of 18. So actually 50% of our generation is not available at the moment. Generators can help us, but they cannot replace 9 gigawatt. It is just physically, technically impossible to bring generators to replace 9,000 megawatt of capacity in the country. We have to find different ways. As I said, we have to do everything to restore equipment now. We should bring quick solutions, gas turbines, and now we are working here and discussing that we can bring gas turbines and install them before winter. So these are measures we can take. And of course, we should bring more generators. So now we need to think, and we do it. I know that our government very much involved in this, how to protect critical infrastructure at our cities, so that they have autonomous sources of power, like generators and other ways, so that in critical situations, at least critical infrastructure can be connected and have power.
You're obviously on the same page as your president when it comes to the importance of air defense. Is Kyiv also carrying that message about, say, the electricity capacity, what you talked about, the imports? Is that a message that Kyiv is also carrying forward? Do you feel like you're in lockstep? You're a private company, of course.
Yes, you know, for more than 2 years we work as one team. I cannot see any difference in messages and actions between private companies and our government and state-owned companies. So we work as a team. We know how to deal with this critical situation, and the same message is coming. So I know that our Minister of Energy very actively talking about increase of cross-border capacity for import. I know that air defense to protect critical infrastructure in our power station is top of agenda of our president and our government. We work closely with air defense forces to find a way and make a priority what to protect as a top priority, as I said. So we work together, and the messages are the same.
What about the financing of this new material that you're trying to bring in? Conferences like these, they tend to focus on the mid to long term. We're talking about reconstruction. You're talking about 120 days until winter. Are you on the same page with everyone at these conferences?
Probably the only difference now, and message coming from private companies, and it mostly not to our grant, rather to international financial institutions like EBRD, European Investment Bank, and other partners of Ukraine, then probably it's time to pay much more attention to private sector and private companies. Historically, a lot of focus was on state-owned companies and support to state-owned energy companies. Now, probably in this urgent situation, we need more financial support from these institutions. So we try to deliver this message, and we're on the market for 19 years. So we build very, very complex projects, like the largest wind farms and solar farms and reconstruction we've done with our thermal power generation. We know how to deliver, and we know how to take responsibility. And a good example is wind park we built during the war. So we invested 200 million euro in 22-23 to build brand new wind park, which so needed now for power supply. And we're ready to continue. We need financial support. So I give you a good example. As I said, on 1st of June, 2 solar farms were attacked by Russians. And it took for us only 3 days to restore full capacity of these solar farms, meaning that renewable distributed generation, like wind parks, solar farms, they're much more resilient than centralized generation like thermal power, coal power stations. So, and we need to build more. We have ready to build projects. We have people, we have knowledge, we have experience building this project during wartime, but we need access to capital.
What is it going to take to convince investors to invest in a company that's in the middle of a war zone right now?
This is exactly what we're doing here. We have a lot of meetings, we bring our arguments, and the best argument is our own example. So when I come and say, this is what we've done, these are the risks, this is how we cope with this risk, this is what should the main issues and how they can be resolved. So if you tell not theoretical stories, but stories of your life during the war, it sounds very much convincing. And we see that our financial partners ready to consider this project. We have very, very successful conversation with our American friends from US government and from US aid, from Ukraine Energy Support Fund, Energy Community Secretariat. So all these talks come to decisions, and I see that we get more and more support now. Short-term, urgent support to get ready, and not at 100%, but avoid any dramatic or humanitarian catastrophe. We know what to do, and we get support. But we shouldn't forget that building more renewables should start now. We shouldn't wait and end of the war. So, and we get more and more positive signals about it.
What kind of mechanisms do you still need to be able to reassure banks and investors? Is there a better way to guarantee loans, to underwrite loans? What do you need?
So another example, our partnership with Vestas, Danish government leading wind turbine producer. So we spent several months speaking with the Danish government, and finally a decision was made to provide guarantee for 380 million euro to build a 500 megawatt wind park in Ukraine. So it's a special decision of Danish government, and under this guarantee we can build syndicate of commercial banks ready to invest this project, 380 million. And of course we contribute our equity part of this, so the total value of this project 450 million euro. So, and it's good precedent, an example for other governments. Here in Germany, we speak with Höhle Hermes as leading export credit agency. We have very good relationship with this institution. With support of this institution, we built 300 megawatt wind parks in Ukraine since 2012. And basically, what I can say that the first wind park in Ukraine was built with great support of Germany, because equipment was produced in Germany, guarantee was issued by Höhle Hermes from Germany, and it was a consortium of German banks who provide financing for that. Basically, Germany opened the whole industry of wind generation in Ukraine, and I see that it will continue. So we speak with these institutions. Of course, we speak with American institutions, US Maxim Bank, DFC, so that they can provide financial support to other projects in Ukraine.
So you see a lot more of these decentralized, especially renewable projects in the future as a kind of guarantee against these attacks. how fast can you build them? What can you do between now and, I guess, winter or in 1 year?
Absolutely. The irony of this war is that the whole process of decarbonization accelerated in Ukraine. So probably it's first time when we see renewables through the angle of energy security and resilient generation. 2 years ago, nobody talked too much that having wind and solar farms is much more resilient than having coal, gas, or nuclear power generation. So today, we have ready to build projects for 1.5 gigawatt. So we're ready to start construction for some of them in just in 2-3 months' time. If we structure financing and get equipment, then it can be rolled out quite fast. And I think that Ukraine can become one of the first countries, the European continent. We have 100% clean generation mix, which consists of nuclear and renewables. So it's feasible. In our country, we have great potential and wind speed and good radiation for solar parks. And we know we have technologies and we have the most important people and experience how to do that. So basically, this is our absolute priority, and it's in line with the Ukrainian energy strategy. So bring in more renewables, battery storage, new technologies and automatization of our power grid. And this is basically all in our plans. We need partners, we need support, we need vendors and financial partners.
I know that your company doesn't operate any of the nuclear power plants. I believe there are 3 others that aren't controlled by Russia right now. Do you have any thoughts on where things could lead if those would be targeted, what that would mean, what you see coming?
More than 50% of power in Ukraine produced by nuclear power stations. Basically, it's foundation of our energy system. And I'm very grateful to my colleagues from Energoatom, national company operating our nuclear power stations, that they keep them operating, they do all this maintenance, and they follow all safety standards we should have. My hope that Russians will not cross another red line and not target nuclear power stations. And I think nuclear safety and this discussion is extremely important. And I know that in the agenda of peace conference coming 15-16 in Switzerland. And I hope the whole world will send the message to Russians again. Don't cross this red line and touch nuclear power stations or nuclear weapon. It's difficult for me to build any scenario if they start attacking nuclear. So it will be a disaster not only for Ukraine but for the whole European continent. And I don't even want to consider this scenario.
9 gigawatts of power. You have 120 days roughly till winter. How much of that can you get back? Can you replace?
So I can say about our case, as I said, 90% of our coal and gas generation was destroyed or damaged. Our plan, and we have a very clear schedule, at least 50% of this damaged equipment can be brought back by the next winter. So meaning that 2.5 gigawatt of capacity can be added from our company. So I hope that about from half to 1 gigawatt can be added through import, through
increased imports,
import capacity. Then I know that our colleagues also working on this, and probably they can add 1.52 gigawatt other thermal power stations. So in general, we can add sufficient capacity to avoid humanitarian catastrophe. Unfortunately, for the next winter, people will be staying without power. But our goal now is to talk about hours without power, like we have it now, 3, 4, 5 hours, rather than hours with electricity. If it stays as it is, then we'll be talking about 3, 4 hours with power supply, rather than vice versa. So we have to avoid this scenario, and that's what we're all doing here and every day working on improvement of situation. But again, coming to key message from my side is air defense. And we see that all our efforts and everything what we reconstruct and restore can be destroyed by 1 or 2 air attacks.
Maxim Timchenko, DTEK, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.